Mr. Govinado Shivaraja, Media and Marketing Manager of the Sri Lanka NOC. Govinado-san, all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sakata. Good afternoon, good evening for all of you. Hopefully you all can hear me properly, right? And also you can see my slides.
It's perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm from National Olympic Committee of Sri Lanka, working as a marketing and media manager. And this presentation was prepared by the administrative official. She was there during the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. So this presentation will be all about the experience and the learning throughout the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games in the perspective of the National Olympic Committee as an administrative perspective for improving the things in future. So moving to the next slide, like before that, what are the things I'm going to cover in this presentation is like from the administrative, what are the perspective, what are the experience that we have learned, and what are the new things or maybe the changes that we have done it in our organization and what we can do it in future. That will be shared with some of the best practices done by one of the national federation and some of the athlete experiences and some of the things been already implemented in our National Olympic Committee. And then finally, I'll be highlighting like a couple of strategy plans that we can do it in future games, especially for the upcoming games in this year. So firstly, like what are the key influences from the COVID countermeasures from the administrative perspective? Like if you look at this Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, just before starting these Olympic Games, as we all experienced, this COVID-19 hugely impacted, and it has changed so many structures or maybe our administrative works as well. So in the case, how the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games Organizing Committee as well as this International Olympic Committee, they tackled that, but they successfully completed because of all these facts. The firstly, like they had like a lot of meetings. So throughout the meetings, then we also had to deal with our athletes because most of the athletes, they were scattered around the world. Only few athletes in Sri Lanka out of 9 athletes, right? Rest of the 6 athletes, they were outside Sri Lanka. So in that case, that we had to take care of them by conducting so many meetings and the discussion with the multiple stakeholders, not only with our athletes, but also with the organizing committee and the International Olympic Committee. But very luckily, as you all know, they introduced the playbook that was distributed among our athletes. But the thing is, we had to translate and we explain everything in our local language with the guidelines. And especially another key successful factor, the first time this International Olympic Committee, they introduced this COVID liaison officer for each game. So we also recruited a doctor as a COVID liaison officer. So all the athletes and all the Sri Lankan contingents numbers were shared with the COVID liaison officer. So whenever they have their health issues or maybe the fever, temperature changes, so even 24 hours, they could be able to talk to the doctor and they could be able to overcome all the issues. Especially the volunteers and the assistants, those who were in the Tokyo from the prior to the arrival and even after the departure also, they took care of us, especially by displaying the countermeasures, the information, so maybe the brochures, everything was smooth, and some of the experience will be shared by our athletes in the later slides. And especially in the airport, Olympic villages, competition and the training venues, and some of the residential areas, all there were like very clear guidelines, and especially our athletes also didn't face any bad experiences. Everything were in a smooth way, and also the very important things, very only few people were allowed to go to the entertainment area, as well as the Olympic Village had a very extraordinary countermeasures for the COVID-19 pandemic, so that we could able to like see that only few number of COVID positive cases came in the Olympic Village area, as well as the minimum or maybe less number of public exposures were there. Especially another one, the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Organizing Committee, they introduced the new applications called OCHA. So through that one, we could be able to communicate every hours or maybe every other hours, like about our health status, temperature, and about our vaccination status and everything. So that was the fantastic application they developed it. So these are the key learning that we had it. Then after that, through this key learnings, like one of the great examples that one of our administrators, officials who was the press attaché for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games of the Sri Lankan contingent. So he learned the things. Then after that, he implemented into his own basketball federation in Sri Lanka. So like through the using the playbook of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games guidelines, so he also created and make some small changes in our local language to our Sri Lankan basketball team, the guideline brochure, and also he appointed a CLO also for the team when they are going for a local competitions or maybe the international competitions. And whatever the experience that he learned while he was staying in Tokyo 2020, he used the same restrictions at the dressing room and the dining room and the training center as well. So if you look at this picture, these are some of the countermeasures that we have applied in our NOC Sri Lanka after we went to the Tokyo 2020. So we learned from our colleagues who went there, and they saw that in the vehicles there are some screen separations between the driver and the passengers. So we immediately implemented, because the driver is always like mingle with all the different people. So we put the screen separation, as well as in our dining room in our Sri Lanka headquarters. We put the screens like to separate the staff to have their lunch at the same time even. So like moving to the next one, there are 9 athletes. They took part in the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, but the experience is different. So I could be able to bring like a couple of athletes here to share the experience, because it's a new normal beyond their trainings, beyond their travelings, and beyond their past experiences and all. So how they have tackled and how they can overcome the challenges with the great support of the Tokyo 2020 is shared by the fastest man in South Asia. Let's listen to him.
Hello, I am Yuhun Abekon and fastest man in South Asia, and also participated in Tokyo Olympics 2021. At first, I wanna say it was my first experience in Japan as well as Olympics. When I entered to the village, I saw it was well planned place with COVID regulations and also with high level of security. The people who work inside the village, they are professional in their works and very kind. We can't forget the volunteers who helped to success this main event. They did a very good job. Finally, thank you Japan for hosting Olympics, and it is my unforgettable experience in my life. Thank you Japan again. One day I want to visit to Japan. Thank you.
So this athlete is he took part in the Olympic Games for the first time, but the next athlete he was the 17 years badminton champion in Sri Lanka. The Tokyo 2020 was his third Olympic Games. So let's listen to his new experience, how the Tokyo 2020 they given.
Hi, I'm Nilu Bakarwarappu, Sri Lankan badminton player. Firstly, we should be thankful. We are thankful to IOC, to Japan, and the Japan people for hosting the Olympic Games in Tokyo under a lot of challenges and a lot of difficult situations at the time they have been going through, and we all have been going through. It was a great feeling and the great time that we had in Japan as an Olympians, that we are united as one again. So this is the message that we carried out, we carried back in our lives and in our country, that whatever comes, whatever challenges may rise against us, rise upon us, that we have the courage, we have the motivation, we have the strength as Olympians and Olympic movement that to rise again and get up on our feet and do what we love. So again, I'm thankful to everyone who contributed for Tokyo Olympic Games, and special thanks goes to the country, Japan, and the Japan people. Thank you.
So these are the some of the athletes' views, and then moving to the strategic learnings to implement in future. So what we are really feeling is like we have to educate our athletes and the officials about the COVID countermeasures on a daily basis, because for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, we have a very small contingent. But for the upcoming events like games like Commonwealth Games, Asian Youth Games, Asian Games in China, so especially like the Sri Lankan contingent will be definitely more than 150 or maybe 200. So in that case, we have to like educate all the athletes. But the thing is, during the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, we educate or maybe we had a meeting with one-to-one. But in future, definitely we have to go for like a group meetings and a group discussions with them. And also, especially like it will be very hard task for us to like challenge with this big contingent in future. So therefore we have to take a really surveillance prior to the event participation. And then finally this time the Tokyo 2020 athletes, they train in a different places, especially most of the athletes, they were in abroad. But for this upcoming Asian Games or maybe the Commonwealth Games, the most of the athletes are from Sri Lanka, so we are planning to train the athletes with a similar standard and the same place, so under the all COVID-19 protection. So this is what we are intending to do that one. Thanks for listening to my presentation, and if you have any other questions, then you can ask me later. Thank you.
Thank you, COVID-19, for sharing good practice and utilizing COVID countermeasure in local context. And we are very pleased that the knowledge and know-how from the Tokyo 2020 Games is utilized and developed in your country, Sri Lanka sports community in a wider range. And then also thank you very much for your great message from your athlete experience from Tokyo 2020. It was a very encouraging message. And thank you to your support and understanding for our COVID-19 countermeasure during the Tokyo 2020. I certainly remember we have a lot of issues like infection control, vaccination, quarantines, and the definition of the close contact, and testing, and COVID-19 liaison officer appointment, and then playbook, sport-specific regulation and countermeasure for the COVID-19. So we are very glad this information still alive and developing your local context to develop your sports community. So thank you very much.